You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
This madness is just a warning of what the Supreme Court is about to do, based on an article by Ray Richmond. The court didn't protect birthright citizenship. It delayed the next assault. The immediate story is simple. The court refused to let Trump erase birthright citizenship by executive order, and the majority said what the Constitution already says plainly. But the real story is not reassurance. It is that a foundational right had to survive a manufactured crisis at all, with Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch still willing to lend intellectual cover to a plainly anti-constitutional project. The power was never in doubt. The institutional power sits with the court, the presidency, and the party machinery that feeds both. Trump made the move. The Republican legal ecosystem carried it. The Supreme Court accepted the premise that this was a live constitutional question instead of a stunt designed to test how much damage could be normalized before anyone flinched. That is the pattern: raw executive hostility to citizenship, filtered through litigation, then laundered into a legitimate debate. The source is right to treat the ruling as a win, but the deeper truth is uglier. A democracy does not celebrate when its highest court declines to help a president nullify citizenship by fiat. Trump's method is not confusion. Trump does not respect legal limits. He probes for weak seams and then bullies through them. The source describes him threatening legislation after the ruling and treating the Constitution like an antique obstacle. That is not inconsistency. It is the method. He does not need to win every round if he can keep forcing institutions to exhaust themselves, proving the obvious. That is how authoritarian politics works in practice, not with one grand overthrow, but with repeated demands that judges, legislators, and the press pretend the basic terms of citizenship and voting are still unsettled. The ballot fight is suppression with better branding. The same logic runs through the late ballot fight. The RNC challenged counting mailed ballots that arrived after Election Day, as if every ballot not handed over in ritual purity is presumptively fraudulent. That is not election protection. It is an effort to shrink the electorate, especially in places where mail voting is common and Republicans cannot rely on turnout alone. The source tries to frame this as Trump's broader scheme, and that part is right. Late ballot litigation is part of the same anti-democratic ecosystem as voter purges, documentary proof demands, and attacks on mail voting. The point is not to secure elections. The point is to make participation harder where the wrong people live. The court helps by taking the bait. Even when the court rules against Trump on the immediate question, it still grants his politics oxygen by treating his nonsense as a serious jurisprudential dispute. That is the failure, not merely the dissents, but the willingness to dignify a manufactured grievance with constitutional theater. Thomas's long dissent is not an act of rigor. It is a performance of restoration politics, recasting the Reconstruction Amendments as if their plain purpose were the problem. The source calls this what it is, albeit with more heat than analysis: a legal project built to reopen settled questions whenever power wants a different outcome. ICE is not broken. It is doing its job. The source's passing reference to detention centers and an ICE brigade is not a side note. It is the enforcement arm of this politics. ICE is not a bureaucratic mistake that needs better training or lighter rhetoric. It is a coercive institution built to terrorize immigrants, normalize detention, and make state violence feel administrative. If the politics here is about stripping citizenship, policing who may vote, and expanding the machinery of expulsion, then ICE is not adjacent to the story. It is central to it. Abolish ICE. The larger pattern is open cruelty and legal duress. This is how anti-democratic power presents itself now, as litigation, as procedure, as constitutional concern, as concern trolling about ballots and citizenship. But the content is simple. It is about narrowing the demos, hardening hierarchy, and making state violence look like governance. The most dangerous part is not that these actors are confused. It is that they know exactly what they are doing. They are testing how much of the Constitution can be treated as optional before the country admits the obvious. Some institutions are no longer guarding democracy. They are bargaining with the people trying to dismantle it. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Raw Story for today's article, with the automated voice of Joe. Thanks for listening.